Hi, welcome to the Sew Along 2020 with GourmetQuilter. We're doing a very Australian themed quilt this time, and if you've already signed up to get the pattern, you will have something like this that you can download and print with some patterns to trace this time, because we're doing some appliques. So we're on to block 4 or part 4 of the series of the Sew Along. So this is the actual block that we're making. We've got this very Australian theme, so we've got gum leaves and gum nuts, which are a very Australian sort of tree, and I've even got some real ones here. These are from my garden. I don't actually live in Australia, but we have nonetheless got gum leaves with gum nuts, and so that's more or less what I've modelled the block onto with the gum leaves. So what we've got to do this time is we're making 4 applique blocks, but we're making 2 facing one way and 2 mirror image of them, so 2 facing the other way as well, so that they'll fit it within the quilt. So what we're going to do is start getting ready to do the applique. So previously we've had instructions to get the backgrounds for the applique, so you've probably got those ready to go, so we can do that. So I've already got one here. I've done 3 of my 4 blocks already, so I thought I'd show you on this one. So I've traced all my shapes. They're ready to trace in both directions, and I've traced them, cut them all out. I'm just using some of the fabrics, these wonderful Australian fabrics for the applique and things, just fairly randomly, whatever I think fits at the time. So it's looking really nice, I think, with all these very Australian fabrics in there. So what I've done is gone ahead and I've already positioned some of my pieces on, just to show you how I work. So I'm using a blanket stitch for the applique, and because we have to stop and start quite a lot, I think rather than putting everything on in one go and then trying to work out how you can stop and start and cover your ends and tie them off and all the rest of it, what I like to do is work from the bottom layer up, and the pattern pieces will be numbered so that you can do this. So if you want to put this piece number 1 down, you can put that one down first and things, so it gives you some indication with the numbering on the pattern. So I wanted to do that so that I can stitch around that, and I can start and stop somewhere that is going to be covered up. So there's going to be, actually that one's got a gum nut on it, so that one goes over the end. So it doesn't really matter, any of these little ends are going to be covered, so you don't have to be worrying too much about tying off and things, because we'll be covering over it with the next shape. So quite often if I'm doing applique with several pieces like this where they are overlapping, I do the underlayer first, and so what that meant doing was the branch and also the little holes that show through the gum nut to indicate the little shape of the nut there. So I position things like that on, so you've got to position them carefully with the other piece to make sure they're in the right place, but that's kind of fun. And then I just iron those on, and so I've actually already done my blanket stitch just around the bottom curve of those 2 shapes, because the top curve gets covered over by the next shape. And I've done my branch here, so I'm ready now to position my other pieces. So I'm just going to, and trees move even in the wind, it's amazing. So the leaves are not necessarily in a particularly set place, even the branch might be at a slightly different angle. There's all sorts of ways things can look good. They can be slightly different fabrics. It's really just a matter of having things so that you're happy with your quilt. And I'm just going to position that on over there. So because I've already done the stitching on that, I'm going to be covering over any ends that I've been able to just snip off without having to tie off, and that's going to sit somewhere like that. And really they're ready to iron in place now. I've already taken the fusible web off the back. So some appliques you can put everything on, and some I find it's better to just work from the bottom up. So I'm ready to go to the sewing machine now. So what I thought I'd do is just perhaps go around one of the leaves. It's really quite self-explanatory to do the little gum nuts. Because we've already done this outside curve, you could start at one of the corners here and do the inside curve and then come all the way around and meet up back there and things like that. So with the leaf I can go all the way around and come and meet back up there. And yes, you have got to start and stop for the next shape, but I think that's pretty good. So I thought we'd just go around, because some of these little curves and points are quite tight. So I've got my machine set up with a blanket stitch. I've made it slightly narrower and slightly shorter than the machine settings, so it's too long and too wide. And I've got an open-toed foot on because I find I can see that best for doing the applique. So I'm just going to start at the top of the leaf here. And so you've got the stitch so that the straight part of the stitch is to the right, so more or less onto the background of fabric, and the little one that comes across goes onto the actual applique shape, which holds it all in place. So you may find you've got to start and stop fairly often because the curves and things, but we'll go down and get that point done because the point's quite pointy, and it's really just a matter of taking time, turning often by lifting your foot. If you've got a knee lift, that's great. I haven't got mine here today, but I can just lift it, leave the needle down. So you do all the swinging and moving with the needle down on the straight stitch side, so just off the applique. And that usually then allows that little stitch that goes in onto the applique stays nice and straight and doesn't open up. When you get near the point, just take it slowly and come down pretty much to the point, leave the needle down and turn it, and then you can just do that little one stitch that it wants to do and then turn it again, and it's ready to continue on up the other side. So just that one stitch into the point seems to really help with turning it like that, and then just coming up the other side. So you can move your fabric just a little bit as you go without having to lift the foot, but I recommend lifting the foot fairly frequently rather than sort of wrenching a little bit the fabric, because the stitches tend to go a little bit crooked doing that. I'm going to come up and finish this leaf so I can just show you the next little bit. Nearly done. So when the curve's tighter, you need to turn more often. And then we can take it out. And then you can either lock that off or tie that off, and I've locked it off so I can snip my threads. So then when you look at an actual gum leaf, you'll see they've got a very strong central vein. They do have other lines as well, but this is a very strong line. So in the pattern there is a line like that that comes down through here. It's up to you whether you do it. It doesn't really show when we're working with fairly busy patterned fabrics like this. However, if that's what you'd like to do, then it's quite good to just do it. And what I've been doing for that is just a straight stitch, so starting at the top of the leaf and coming down and then coming back on itself. So we'll just do one of those. Just regular straight stitch, and you can curve it around a little bit. You go right to the point or somewhere near it, turn it around and then come back on that same stitching line. And that just gives it a little bit more definition. Or you could use a different colour thread, you could embroider it, you could do it with a pen, or you could leave it off. So many options. So that's it for the applique. So on the back you can see what I've done there, that line in the middle of the leaf. So all we need to do now is finish off the applique, which I can go ahead and do, and then we just need to put the frame around. So if you remember, we had, when we were doing this little fella here, we had the border pieces to go around the block, so all those instructions are in with that block. So I've gone ahead, I've got my pieces ready here to put on. So we pop our sides on and we put the top and the bottom on, and then that will be our block. So as I said before, 4 blocks this time, 2 going this way, 2 going in the mirror image of them. And get your frames on. The frames are all the same on these ones because these are all inside blocks. So that's it for the gum nut block, and we'll see you again with block number 5.